Uh,
All right, I think we are ready. Okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us on this session today. We are really excited to have you join us. Once again, my name is Amanda Asanta Asafoje, and I'll be your host for today's session. Right here with me, I do have Anna Walker, and she does talent scout and university recruiting at Uber USA. Today, Anna is just going to share lots of her knowledge that she has with regards to securing internships with Fortune 500 companies. And with this, it includes Uber, companies like Uber. Anna is just going to share all her knowledge with regards to this, as well as some tips on how we can build our resume. Because most of the time, when you go out or when you're applying for jobs, it seems your resume is what is supposed to sell you out. And most of the time, people do not really have that much knowledge on how to work around with their resume. So Anna will help us out with that. Anna, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mandy.
Thank you so much for being able to join us today on our session. We really, really do appreciate you a lot.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much for having me. I feel like this is a great initiative. Not only is it going to help so many people in securing internships, but it's also going to solve a lot of headaches that recruiters do have from the back end. So it's going to be a win-win for everybody, including myself as well.
Yes, please. I think I'll just leave the floor to you so you can take over.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And Mandy, with all the process that we started with, as in even coming here today, I want to say again, I really enjoy the process. To me, it's a huge project that you've taken on. Aspire, it's a great company as well, but your initiative as in making sure that I was having a very great experience in the planning, selecting a time, even when it came to my picture and all that, I really did enjoy it. I just wanted to give you a quick tip that it's a project that you can have on your resume as well. It all depends on how you would explain and talk about it. So I really do appreciate that as well.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Awesome. So a little bit about me. My name again is Anna Walker. I am a senior talent scout or a senior recruiter at Uber. One fun fact about me is I was born and raised in Ghana, West Africa. I did everything back home in Ghana before I relocated to the US. I had my internship at the United Nations a couple of years ago. I'm not going to disclose the year, otherwise you might think that I'm super old. Yeah, and then after that, of course, when we relocated, I started off in campus recruiting or university recruiting. I have been in campus recruiting so far up until now. What is very common with the companies that I have worked at, it's fortunately, they're all like Fortune 500 companies, and it's within either the tech or the financial institution. So sometimes it's a mix of both. Other times it's also just one company. I'm enjoying it so far because it's something that I didn't know so much about growing up. And I believe that now that I know, it's up to me to share with everybody. So this is a very great platform for me to share the little that I know. I know that Mandy was saying that I'm going to pour all my knowledge. I hope I'm able to do that. But of course, even with some of the mistakes that I have done in the past and some of the lessons, I feel like sharing it with everybody today would help you, not repeat the same things. And it will be like a very kickoff process for you in making sure that you secure an internship with any Fortune 500 company. So our agenda for today, we'll be talking a little bit more about why internships. I know it's super popular right now. Everybody seems to be wanting to do it, but why internships? Yeah, we would explore internships and grad programs as well. We'll talk more about timeline and processes. And then one of my most popular question that I do get from candidates or students is, how do I stand out? It looks like everybody asks that question. It's like, how do I? So we'll talk a little bit more about that as well. And then we would dive into resume and interview tips and the network and My other favorite part, it's the Q&A. Feel free to jump in even in the middle of the presentation. If you have a question that you feel like, hey, you know what, I can't hold on, I need to ask this question. I'm more than happy to take a pause and then answer, but if you can wait as well, that would also be great. So why does like internships really matter? A lot of people would ask, do I really need to intern? Do I as a person really need to intern? Yes, you do. Definitely, for sure, whilst we are going through college or any form of education, the hopes is that after we graduate, we will get a job, right? But for me, I feel like there's always a lot more to do even before you graduate. And one of them is like an internship. It can be an internship, which is like a cohort or a main internship. Now we even do have PhD internships. We have MBA internships as well. We have, co-ops, which is like very short internships. One of the main reasons is, in college, a lot of people would say, I need to find myself. I need to find what I really want to do. An internship is also a very great opportunity for you to say that, hey, you know what? I don't want to be in sales anymore. Or I'm studying business. I have sales as my minor. But do I want to be in tech sales? Do I want to be in, any kind of sales? So an internship is where you can really make that decision about your future. And two, which is the sweet part, it puts you ahead of the pack when it comes to a full-time employment. Internships are supposed to end you into a full-time employment. Most companies do not just want to invest in you for 12 weeks. They want to invest in you forever. So if you are an intern at Uber for 12 weeks, chances are that you would eventually get a full-time role. Even if within the same team or in a different team, you will be up in the league when it comes to the selection process, because guess what? You've worked at Uber before. You're familiar with the people. You have great reference. You are used to the culture. You're used to how things works at Uber. So why not we give you the offer to come on board as a full-time versus someone who, probably did not intern at Uber or probably also did not really have any internship at all. I'm not saying not having an internship, it's a bad thing, but I would say it kind of like can affect you sometimes. It can really make the process in getting like a full-time job really take quite some time. So when it comes to exploring internship and new grad opportunities, I have just put a couple, resources together. First of all, it's definitely you making a decision that, what kind of companies do I want to work for? Do I just apply because it's showing up on a job board? No. For me personally, I really want it to be in the financial institutions. I don't know why, but I felt like it will be a safe space for me because money, finances, and all that it's ongoing. It never ends. But at some point, I realized that technology was a big thing now. So I'm like, okay, let me just add it up. That way, if one part of it does not work, the other part would work as well. So of course, let's say you're looking more into Uber. You would really want to not just search the career page. You would want to search our university or our campus recruiting page, because that is where you would find more information about. That is where you will see that we have programs like, co-op, we have like MBA, and then we also do have the Uber Star program. The Uber Star program, it's a very specific program that is meant for, we call it the URMs, that is the underrepresented minorities. So if you identify yourself as someone who is underrepresented or someone who is a minority, then you have to apply for Uber Star. And that will really help you stand out. But if you don't really go into this university website and search, how would you know? And when I talk about search, you don't just search and leave it there. You search and then you bookmark it. You search and then you save like job alerts. You make sure that you save job alerts, which is from 24 to 3 business days. I lose out a lot on very good candidates, not because they were not great, but because they didn't apply on time. So, and I'm not able to really disposition and say, hey, we are not moving forward with you because you didn't apply on time. It's not part of the applicant tracking system. All that I would say, just to be politically right, is that, so sorry, we are moving forward with other candidates. I would not be able to say because he didn't apply on time, but most of the time it's because it was a late application. We need to network. Aspire is a very great platform. very great resource for you to get to know more about Fortune 500 internships. I have partnered with them, and through me, Aspire has a connection with Uber, which is great. So if you are not really part of the Aspire network, if you are not tuning in, if you are not following them, how then do you know that, hey, we have some internship roles with this company or that company? LinkedIn. I feel like if you have Facebook, you should have LinkedIn, right? Because you're already on social media. So why not LinkedIn? You should be there. You should have a picture there. You should have something about you there, what you've done in the past, what you're doing now, your school, and then what you are up to. Are you open to a new role? Do you have it on your page? So many interns do come into Uber because they posted that, hey, I'm looking for an internship in this or that. I'm available within this time frame. So these are the things that we should also make good use of. Jumpstart is also another job board. It was actually changed from Jumpstart to Canvas just about a week ago. It's a job board like LinkedIn, but it's actually for a very diverse group of people. So it's a very great place for you to also have your profile as well. It gives you the chance to really network with so many other students and also so many other companies as well. Handshake, the most popular one with all universities. Are you on Handshake? Are you really current on Handshake? Are you just there to be there because your professor said you should be there? I believe all these kind of resources and many more that we have right now are some of the places that we should be living. If we have 10 or 15 minutes to post like our pictures and videos on maybe Twitter or Instagram, we should be able to allocate those times in posting things about what we are working on. And even sometimes, even if it's like an experience that we've had with a company, which was great, but maybe we didn't have an offer. There's nothing wrong with you saying, hey, I had a very great experience with Aspire. I got to learn this and that. Tag somebody in the company, tag someone else. All these things would expose you to the right people and the right network, which can eventually help you land an internship. There we go. Timeline and processes, very, very essential. So for internship hiring seasons, it varies with so many different companies. But at Uber, internship hiring season is like January to April. So in as much as I'm so excited to be here today, if you should reach out to me after the event about any internship for this summer, unfortunately, it's closed and it's super late. But if you want us to talk more about internships coming, let's say in the fall or for next season, that is super awesome because you know what? You are way ahead of the game. We can talk more. We can do some mock interviews. We can even chat about, how to explore and things like that. When it comes to full-time hiring seasons, that is from August to April. This is where those who are already interning at Uber have an advantage over someone who did not, or even if it's any other company. When it comes to the interview process, this is very generic. It sometimes do change based on the track that you have applied to, but generally you would have either an exercise or an assessment. And I will say, please don't overthink the exercise. Don't overthink the assessment. Sometimes it takes some of my candidates about a week to get back to me. And I'm like, oh my goodness, it's just basic. Just feel free, write everything you need to write, do a little bit of your research about the exercise or the assessment, and then let it get back to me, because if you don't get it back to me on time, then it really prolongs the process, and the process really moves really quickly as well. So please do not overthink the exercise or the assessment. Normally, you would have about two virtual interviews because of all that's going on right now. One of the virtual interviews might be with a recruiter, it might be a phone screen, or it might be a technical, Zoom interview. And then sometimes too, we might have a one on-site panel. It's called on-site panel, but it's still virtual. It's just that with this one, you'll be meeting with about 2 or 3 interviewers. Normally, like let's say if it's a sales role, you'll be meeting with the internship manager, you'll be meeting with a city manager, and then you would also be meeting with a territory manager. So it's a number of interviewers. It is not to grill you. It is just to get to know more about you. Questions will be coming from each and every one of them, but there's nothing wrong with you taking a pause and really thinking about the answer before you talk about it. How to stand out, one of the very, common questions that I do get a lot. This is just an example of a job description. So basically, job descriptions are also one of the tools that I believe that candidates should really take time to go through it. The job description itself is telling you a lot about the team, about the company, about the basic qualifications, and then about the preferred qualifications. Or sometimes some companies will say preferred experience or bonus points. What will really make you stand out is the preferred qualification. One, that's on paper. Basic qualifications is like grad dates, maybe you would say we are looking for sophomores or seniors or rising juniors, right? Location, we need someone maybe in Chicago or we need someone in Dallas. I know now it's all virtual, but you would still sometimes have to be within the US, still to be virtual, to be a virtual intern. Field of study, we might say you need to be studying business, and those are really basic, as you can tell, right? But the preferred qualifications is the very first, they are the very first thing that helps you to stand out. Some of the tools, do you know the tools? Maybe it's asking that you be either bilingual or multilingual. Are you? Even if you are not, right? And then maybe you come from a family that really relocates most of the time, or you do have like a global background. That makes you stand out, but it all depends on how you will word it. Maybe during your phone screen, your recruiter might ask, are you bilingual or multilingual? You go like, no. Okay. You can respond by saying, technically, I'm not. I'm a little conversational, but we have moved around a lot. I've lived in Japan, I've lived in Ghana, I've lived in South Africa, I've lived in Kenya. So I'm used to working with different people from diverse backgrounds. I'm used to, learning very basic languages like maybe Karibu in Swahili, or maybe I'm able to say some things in Mandarin. This tells the recruiter that hey, he or she is not really bilingual, but he's very passionate about learning new things, or he's very passionate about learning or trying new things and getting familiar with anywhere that he or she finds him or herself. But once there's a big no, right, then we check the box, right? It's like it's a no. So at that point, we don't move forward anymore. Sometimes it might be tech languages. Do you have C++? Let's say the role requires that you do have the C++. Maybe you don't. That is not really going to help you stand out. That probably might take you to maybe a phone screen or maybe an assessment. Some roles will also ask that you should have a prior internship, right? Maybe you don't really have a prior internship, but you've worked within your department. It was technically not an internship, but it was a job because you did like maybe 8 to 5, or you did some part-time. It all depends on how you would word it, And of course, for this role, it says that someone who has a strong passion to take initiatives. How are some of the answers that you're giving the recruiter or the interviewers reflecting that you have a passion? When I tell you that I'm very passionate about, let's say, aspire, it's a word that I'm telling you, but how am I saying it? When I start to talk about it, do you see any facial expression? How do I move my hands? When I start to talk about aspire, do you see that, oh, wow, she's changed? As soon as she started talking about aspire, you could tell that, oh my gosh, she's a different person altogether, So how are you depicting these in your answers? Or are you just saying, oh, I'm passionate about marketing. I'm passionate about Uber. I would really want to work at Uber. Really? Do you really? So these are some of the actions. And of course, because of the pandemic and all that's going on, video interviews might be really challenging. But trust me, even if it's a phone interview, there are so many ways that you can let the one that you are talking to know that you are passionate, or you are eager, or you are open to learn. You might say, well, but it's just a phone call. No, we can tell because that's what we do, right? And sometimes too, what will really help you know and understand that maybe the recruiter is still interested, but he or she is prompting you. They are some of the cues that we give you. So I understand that maybe I might give you a call for a phone screen and maybe you're home and you have younger siblings who are screaming, right? I understand we are all in a very tough situation right now. But are you aware of your environment? What are you telling me? Are you really telling me that, hey, so sorry, Anna, my siblings are home. Do you mind? Or sometimes I might give you cues like, hey, Mandy, is this still a good time? Do you want me to reschedule? I am indirectly telling you that there's a lot of noise in your background. I can't really hear what you're saying. So do you want me to reschedule? So that is when you should also say, hey, you know what? Maybe I can go sit in the garage I can go sit in the garage, or I can go just sit in my car, or you know what? Give me just a second. Then I know that, you are also aware of your environment. But if I give you a call and let's say you are in a car, like someone is driving the car, and it was a very typical scenario from one of my candidates. I think someone was driving him, the radio was on, and I'm like, hey, do you need me to reschedule? I'm more than happy to do that. And the candidate was like, no, I'm good. Oh, okay. The radio was on, there were songs playing, there was somebody singing in the car. It tells a lot. If you truly are passionate about the internship, if you really want to stand out, I don't think that these really speaks well of the situation, because first of all, I would tell you that I'm more than happy to reschedule. So if for some reason, right, things have changed, just let us know so that we can reschedule. Why is a resume so important? See, a resume actually is you. It's you on a piece of paper. It's you. It's more or less like your business card. It's more or less like some kind of like flyer or brochure that you would want to give out to someone and have the person be so blown away. That's what a resume is from my perspective. The clock is really ticking. I normally spend less than 5 minutes in reviewing a resume, and sometimes it's even under 3 minutes, because what I and most recruiters are looking for, I'm looking for background data. Where are you at? Where are you from? Depending on the location of the job. Are you really a student? Are you in school? Because most of the job descriptions would say we would need someone who is in school or someone who will graduate after 2 or 1 semesters after the internship. So I'm looking for all that background data. And that should take me about 20 seconds to do. I'll just flip through it like that. And your professional experience, even if you've not had any internships, have you led any projects? Have you been part of any kind of society? Are you part of any network, in your school? Like, what is it that you've done? Do you have any awards or accomplishments? These are the things that I'm looking at. And a lot of keywords also comes into play when it comes into this. So let's say for some of my marketing roles, if I'm looking for someone with SEO, which is the search engine optimization, if I'm looking for someone with SEO or SEM experience, all that I'm looking for is SEO. I'm looking for some SEO on the resume. So sometimes I probably would not look. I'll just type in the search button in our applicant tracking system that SEO, and it will pull all the resumes with SEO on for me. So unfortunately, maybe yours might not pull up, but maybe you do have SEO, but you didn't state it. You didn't mention it. So unfortunately, just that search or that screen is going to filter you out. So that is where you need to really go back to the job description and check your resume versus the job description. That if I should start highlighting some of the keywords from the job description on my resume, how many do I find? Am I finding SEO? Am I finding marketing? Am I finding my grad date? Am I finding the location? Am I finding a lot of things on the job description on my resume? So that is why sometimes I say, do not just stick to one resume, because every job description has a very different requirement. I'm not saying lie about your resume. All that I'm saying is that make sure that your resume really matches with the job description. If for some reason, if it does not, I mean, I guess you should find a way to advise yourself, either not to apply or either to start learning more about what the job description is asking for. I've had a couple of candidates who didn't have, let's say, experience in any kind of CRM, because some of our roles requires that you have like maybe Salesforce. Maybe they've just used Salesforce for just a couple weeks. But this is a candidate who is more than happy to dive more into learning about CRM even before the internship starts. That tells me that you are eager, right? So even if you have CRM on your resume and then you put beginner or intermediate, I don't mind, because as your recruiter, I'm able to advocate for you during the debrief after your interview that, hey, you know what? I spoke to Mandy. She was really transparent about being a beginner in Salesforce. But guess what? During our conversation, I could feel how eager she is in learning more about it. So she actually even asked me what version of Salesforce that she should learn more about before the internship, which is great. But if for some reason you feel like, well, I don't know so much about CRM and I'm not really open to learning it right now, but I will just still apply. Chances are that, you might not hear from anyone, and then you might get that kind of generic email saying that we've moved forward with other candidates. And sometimes too, I get feedback from candidates saying that they are not able to see what steps they are at in the interview process or in the recruiting or the hiring process. One of the ways for you to check is your career page account. Not all correspondence or dispositioning comes into your email. Sometimes you just need to go into your account and you are able to see that you are no more under consideration. And it might give you a little feedback. Sometimes you do get the feedback, sometimes you don't. But people would just come together and say, well, we applied so many times and we didn't hear. Compliance requires all recruiters to get back to candidates either via phone or via email. Most of the time, especially for me, who sometimes gets about 1,000 applicants, I'm not able to reach out via email to disposition everybody. So I'm able to disposition through the applicant tracking system. Sometimes it might come to your email. Sometimes it might go to your careers page account. So by the time that you can draw your conclusion about a company, I would advise that you check with your career page account to see where your application is before you draw that conclusion that, hey, they didn't get back to me, so you know what? I'm not going to apply again next season. Compliance requires that we get back to every candidate. It's something that we cannot do away with. Even before we close a requisition, it is required by law for us to disposition and let every candidate know that, we are moving forward or we are not moving forward. I always encourage, candidates or students to use some powerful words, which we call it as like produced, diagnosed, developed, engineered, oversaw. Of course, your resume should be in first person, but these words sets you apart from the lot. When you put like, I did this or my team, the question is, what did you as an intern or a student or as a candidate, what did you really do? Okay. Because of COVID, phone screens and video interviews are so common. Some companies sometimes don't even do phone screens again. So your resume, which is like a piece of you on a paper, your business card, everything about you really needs to speak for you. It really needs to let me know that, oh, this is what candidate A did. This is what candidate B did. Because as your recruiter, of course, when it gets to the time where I'm moving forward with you, I need to calibrate with the hiring team or with your interviewers. Some interviewers would push back and say, why do you want us to move forward with Mandy, right? So that is where I come in and say, hey, I see that she doesn't have any internship experience, but based on how she has worded what she's done in the past, I see more of an intern who is eager to learn, or I see more of some of the people on your team. I see him or she to be like someone on your team or someone that will be really successful, you know? So, and of course, I would want to advocate for a candidate, or I would want to advocate for a resume that I will be open to also accepting as well if I were to be a hiring manager, right? So as your advocate or as the middleman or the middle person, I really need to make sure that what I'm moving forward or what I'm presenting to the team, it's a fit, right? So sometimes, even if you are a referral, I would say it's great to be referred. It's super awesome to have someone who is within the company to refer you. But referrals still do go through the same process. We might give a courtesy of maybe reaching out to you on time, or you might get to know a lot more about the team because maybe someone referred you from within the team or outside the team, which is great. There's nothing wrong with getting referred. It's actually one of the great ways to land an internship as well. But you will still go through the same interview process. So there are some words that I feel like it really helps set you apart. It really makes the team understand that, oh my gosh, wow, is this really an intern? Because it really sounds like someone who's already on the team. So with the very general interview tips, which I believe there'll be a lot of questions that will come in once we get into the Q&A. Very, very general, I would say most companies do have interview prep guides. There's nothing wrong with you asking. Even if maybe you would get the chance to check on YouTube or Facebook or LinkedIn to find out more, there's nothing wrong with you asking the recruiter, hey, do you have any interview prep guide to share with me? There's nothing wrong with that. There are a lot of like behavioral-based questions. Behavioral-based questions are not to, grill you or make you feel uncomfortable. It helps us to get to know you more. And then it also helps us to get to know how structured you are, right? So sometimes you might get questions like, oh, so can you tell me about a time that you were part of a project or you had to spearhead a project that you had no guidance? How did you go about it? Such a question. We are looking for the action. What did you do? Sometimes it's not only just asking the task, the action or the situation, and then the results. Some would call it the star, some would call it the par, but the main goal is for us to see how you would answer it, So definitely for the task, let's say, well, you were asked to host like a virtual event, which you've never done before COVID. That was the task. What was the action that you took? So because of that, I had a chat with my team. I made them understand that this is something that we are trying for the first time. So I had to brainstorm with them about the timing, what kind of platform or that we will be using. Are we going to be using Zoom or are we going to be using Skype? We came to a consensus. And that shows that you are flexible. You don't just dictate to people. We came to a consensus and then we decided with Zoom. We picked out a date. We checked with the people that we were going to be, having the event with. And then eventually we had a couple pushbacks because some of them were not really comfortable with Zoom based on where they were at. That is where I took the chance to explain to them the need for us to have a Zoom event because of COVID. We didn't want people to be exposed, So once you talk about all these things, and then eventually you were able to have the event, 100 people showed up, everything was really successful, you did get some feedback, you sent out a survey. See, it was one question, but you've actually given me about 4 or 5 skills or attributes about you. You've made me come to understand that you like working with people, you are flexible as in making decisions, you respect other people's opinion by coming to a consensus. When you have pushbacks, you turn it around by telling people more about the advantages of doing things a certain way. And then eventually you were able to share surveys just to get some feedback and just to learn from maybe some things that did not work. So basically, it might just be one question, right? But you've been able to let me know about 3 or 4 or 5 things about you, which would help me not probably ask you any other questions again, because you said them all. But if I ask you to tell me about a time that you spearheaded a project or you were part of a project with no guidance and blah, 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 and then you go like, oh, I haven't really spearheaded a project before, you know, um, that's a huge red flag, because as I mentioned earlier, Mandy, setting this whole platform app, setting this whole event app, it's a project. She did it from the scratch. She reached out via email. We had a chat. We picked out pictures, the time. She reminded me of the time zone. She made it clear to me that I need to log on this time for us to test, so it's a project. So you can never say that you've not been part of a project. It's like you telling me that, you know what, I don't like this answer. Can you ask me something else? So it all depends on how you word it. It all depends on how you take your notes, and sometimes it might be something basic. So you would think, well, that's not a project. It is a project, but you need to really write it down. You really need to structure it so that as you talk about it, it wouldn't appear like it was just a basic project. It is still a project. Not all projects involve investors and CEOs and, a client. No, projects can just be anything that has a start point to the end point. Anything that you had to work with people, anything that you had to share your idea, anything that you received pushback, anything that you even came up with and you were either declined or rejected. So these are some of the things that we should always be noting down and jotting down. That way, when you ask the question, you can easily sit back a little and think through it and then answer them. A lot of companies, and I would say if not all, are so very much into diversity and inclusion. As someone with a diverse background, and we all have some kind of diversity in us, whether, with our ethnicity or even with our professional background. Some people are in healthcare and they want to switch to, let's say, tech. Right? You have a diverse professional background. So these are some of the things that you can talk about and let the person know that, oh, wow, this person is coming from here, but he or she is able to let me know that what he or she has done can translate to what we are doing. I have interviewed a lot of students that are either studying like data science and maybe with a minor in business, but they want to be in like a marketing or a sales role. And one of the questions I ask them is why? And they're like, well, sales and data intersect. And I'm like, how? Because I don't know a lot about data science, but they're able to break it down and let me know like, hey, because I'm a strong student in math, or I'm so much into numbers, and sales has to do with numbers. So I believe that me coming on board as a sales intern, I am going to bring on board my experience in numbers and data, which can help me analyze and then show my forecast when it comes to sales. And trust me, as soon as they tell me that, I'm so blown away, because I didn't know, right? But he or she is able to say it in such a way for me to understand. I am not a tech audience. I'm a non-tech audience. I don't understand everything in tech. But how are you, the tech candidate or the tech student, able to explain to me, who is a non-tech person, to understand? That is the same way that you will be able to explain to your interview panel, for them to understand that, oh my gosh, he is coming from a different background, but he already knows how he can use his background to help the team, or how he can be successful based on what he has from where he's coming. A lot of questions about, diversity and inclusion and core values also do come up during interviews. There's nothing wrong with researching a little bit more about how the company is trying to make sure that their employees are diverse. There's nothing wrong with it, but it all depends on how you word it, um, there's nothing wrong with you talking more about how representation mattered to you. You can talk about how you were super excited to see that you saw someone who looked so much like you on the interview panel. It makes them feel good, right? Because we do put in a lot of work in making sure that we have so many different people on an interview panel. So you letting them know that, oh my gosh, when I logged on and I saw someone like me, it really made me feel good about myself, right? And I see myself as someone who can also come in and help you with your diversity and inclusion initiative. So guess what? You are not part of the team yet, but you see yourself as someone who can also come and help with that. There's nothing wrong with sharing numbers. I would just say that just have to be a little bit careful with that because things do update from time to time. So if you are not 100% sure about, let's say, the diversity percentages, you can choose not to go into numbers, but you can say, hey, I got really excited when I got to know that your numbers are really going up when it comes to your diverse talents or your diverse employees. When it also comes to some of your personal core values. So let's say at Uber, we are really customer obsessed. If you are personally someone who is also like family obsessed, customer obsessed, or someone who also thinks like an owner, that is where you can share that about you. It can either be a core value that your mom has passed on to you or a family core value, based on your background. These are things that your interviewers or your recruiter will see that, oh, this is not something that this person learned in school. This is something that makes who you are. So you are not going to really struggle when you come in and be part of the team. So of course, all these things sometimes will be shared with you at Uber. We do so well when it comes to that. Recruiters are also very open when it comes to questions, even before your interview. But it's just that, of course, if there are questions related to some of the questions that you will be asked, unfortunately, I will not be able to share that with you. The best that I can say is, well, it will be behavioral questions, or it will be technical questions, or it will be a case question. So that is where you will need to make sure that all your answers or how you want to structure your answers will be around those kind of questions. How long will the interview take? Sometimes it's 15 minutes, sometimes it's 30, sometimes it's 45. The only thing I would say is that as a candidate, when you are practicing or when you're having someone help you prep for the interview as well, try to get your peak time. Personally, since I'm in recruiting, when you ask me questions about recruiting or candidate experience, I get super excited. You can tell. But when you maybe ask me questions about compliance or questions about tech, I might say some things which might be very generic. But as soon as I start talking about recruiting or experience, like candidate experience, then you're able to say, oh, she's in her zone, right? So with every interview as a candidate, and I understand I had an interview even within Uber a couple of weeks ago, and I was nervous. I was really shaken. Yeah. Interviews can be very intimidating sometimes, but you need to make sure that you can allocate where your peak time would be. Maybe your peak time would be when it comes to your questions. That's the questions that you are asking. Then your interview panel can tell that, oh, he or she is curious, because when it got to that part, we could tell that he's very eager about it. It might be maybe when it comes to your introduction or when it comes to your elevator pitch. Then they can say, oh, wow, the candidate is really confident. I was blown away by how he or she introduced him or herself. It can also be when it comes to the technical part of the interview process, maybe when you're talking about some CRM that you've used before, or maybe Python or C++. So you really need to check with yourself and then find out, what's my zone? What's my peak moment? Other than that, your interview will be very flat. That's how we call it. So sometimes the interviewers are like, I really like the candidate, but I didn't really feel any energy. Like it felt like they were pulling things, so they would say, I'm not 100% sure. Would you give me some time to think about it? Right. So that is where you really need to really sit back like a day or two before the interview and say, hey, you know what? I'm very passionate about the team when it comes to this. So when it comes to that point, I'm just going to rock it. Maybe for the introduction, I'm not all the way there yet. It takes time. Guess what? You are an intern, right? That makes you an intern. But you should be able to figure out what point of the interview process, that you will be able to shine. It doesn't have to be the whole interview. It can just be 5 to 10 minutes part of the interview. And then sometimes too, if your interview should end early, don't feel like because it's ended early, you are not going to make it. Sometimes when it ends early, it can affect some candidates and it doesn't even make them ask questions because they already feel like, well, it's ended early, so maybe I'm not going to make it. No, there might be so many reasons because sometimes some candidates are able to answer like one question and we are able to get about 5 questions answered just from one question. So there's nothing wrong with it. And I would say some of the questions that I always try to tell candidates not to ask or to move away from is, okay, so at this point, what do you think about me? What do you think about me versus the other candidates? It puts the interviewers in a spot, and even when you ask me as a recruiter, I would say, well, I need to put together my notes and I need to submit it to the team and then we'll have a consensus and we'll get back to you. But it also kind of like gives the impression of not being confident because if you truly know that you did your research, you spoke well, you asked the great questions, that actually should not really be a question that you should ask. I guess the most important question that you should ask is, I've had a very great time chatting with you. What is the timeline? When am I going to be hearing back from you? Do you need anything else from me? Right? That is more or less like a question that is expected versus you asking, oh, okay, so based on our conversation, what do you think of me versus the other candidates? Unfortunately, I will not be able to say anything. So just to prevent that kind of like awkwardness, I would say try not to ask that question. Yeah, try to move away from that question completely. Yeah. And also when it comes to networking, I know it's a huge thing right now. There's nothing wrong with networking. A lot of people even do tell me at work that your network also determines like your net worth. The people that the kind of connection that you have, it determines like your net worth. So on LinkedIn, a lot of students or candidates would search recruiters and then they will reach out to us. Believe you me, in as much as I would want to talk to every candidate, unfortunately, I'm not able to do that because I'm supposed to work 8 hours a day. But one of the things that you can do, especially on LinkedIn, if you search a company and then you search the people, and let's say you type into it a name of a school, it's able to pull the people that went to the school within that company for you, so you can reach out to them. Sometimes you might have certain friends in common that you can also reach out to just to help introduce you. And in some rare situations as well, some recruiters are able to get back to you and then talk to you as well. But one thing that I have noticed is sometimes some interns would apply for a role and maybe they are not even following the company. So they don't really know what's happening in the company. And then during the interview process, especially the phone screen, they would ask you a question about the company. And I'm like, oh, really? Like, really? Yeah, but they are really asking you, right? So for Uber right now, one of the most updated information about us is that, we've partnered with CVS, we've partnered with Walgreens. We are giving people free rides to take their vaccines, right? We have also acquired Postmates as a delivery service. And we are also first time in Germany for Uber Eats, okay? You don't really need to know all of it, but let's say you're applying for a sales role within Uber Eats. At least you should know that Uber Eats is now in Germany. You should know that Uber Eats has acquired Postmates. So when you ask me or the panel a question that, oh, I know Postmates is your competitor. How is this team working to, beat Postmates? It's like, oh, really? Postmates is not our competitor. you know, yeah. But meanwhile, maybe on your resume or maybe during your introduction, you are like, I'm so passionate about Uber. I'm always about Uber. I'm an Uber user, so it's like, okay, so if you truly are an Uber user, or if you are passionate about Uber and the team, if you are super excited to be here, how come you don't know that we've acquired Postmates? It wouldn't 100% go against you, but it would sometimes push you a little bit behind, versus the candidate that would come and say, hey, I was super excited when I heard that you had acquired Postmates. It tells me that the company is growing and that there's places for someone like myself, because I'm able to come in and tell people that we are growing as a company as well, right? So it's like, oh, wow, he or she knows this, right? Other than you like just coming in and asking questions that you should know yourself. Okay, yeah. And then also, as I mentioned, Jumpstart has moved to Canvas right now. It's also like a very great resource as well. Some candidates who have interned in like multiple companies are also on there. It doesn't hurt to really connect with them, just to find out how they made it there, just to share tips and tricks with, because you can't do it alone. I did not technically apply to be hired at Uber. I just had open to work on my LinkedIn page. A recruiter reached out to me because I had shared what I was open to, what I'm passionate about. I was following the company, and then someone reached out to me. Okay. So I believe at some point recruiting or hiring will get to a place whereby you technically probably wouldn't have to apply. It will be a recruiter outreach. Someone would have to reach out to you. But the question is, how would someone reach out to me when I'm not out there? You should put yourself out there in a professional way, but unfortunately, sometimes it might not be through referral. It might not be through like a campus event. It might not be through anything. It will just have to be through the fact that you have put yourself out there. Campuses do have a lot of like associations, sororities, and a whole lot. It won't hurt to really be part of it. And you can always double, triple check with your career department to find out, hey, let's say I'm in UCLA. Are we a core school for any company? UCLA is a core school for Uber. So we recruit from there a lot. You might be in a school that, let's say Capital One, you are a core school for Capital One, but maybe you don't know. Your school being a core school for that company puts you ahead of the game because they really want to hire people from that school. Maybe it's because they are a sponsor from the school, so they really want to hire interns from there. Or maybe some interns who interned there a couple of years ago did really well, so they really want to hire people from that school. You not knowing all these things will make you feel like, well, I've applied to so many roles, but no one is really reaching out to me. Okay, so that is where the network is also really, really important. I would say on behalf of all other recruiters, like if you reach out and recruiters are not able to get back to you, don't take it personal, because sometimes the workload is just too much. And there are rules and regulations. Like at Uber, one of our SLAs is that every application that comes in, we have only up to like 3 business days to review it. So if I have 1,000 applications, I'm supposed to be reviewing it every 3 business days. So unfortunately, we are not always able to take a pause and, get back to every candidate. Sometimes when the hiring season dies down, like now, for me, I'm having a lot of like coffee chats with people on the side. I'm having a lot of like open Zoom meetings. Like I can take about 3 or 4 hours and just be on Zoom, and people will just be logging in and asking questions that I'm more than happy to do. But this is something that unfortunately I'm not able to do like from January to April. I'm only able to do it like sometime from like May to about July. I'm not able to do it whilst the campus recruiting season has kicked in. So that is why we need to know some of the things that some companies do and some companies do not do. That way we can really utilize the time and, build our network and of course, connect with so many other people as well. All righty. At this point, I'm just going to leave it to our Q&A. I don't know if any questions have come in yet or.
Yes, I do have quite a number of questions here. So the very first one that I have is, what's the best time to apply for internships, junior year or senior year?
Perfect. That's a good question. It depends. So at Uber, we do have an internship for only sophomores and freshmen, and that is called the Uber Star. It's sophomores and freshmen. So even if you just started school and you are still within your first semester, you are qualified to apply for it. But you just need to make sure that the job title says Uber Star. It might say sales internship, and then into parentheses, it will say Uber Star. And of course, the job description would also say, for freshmen and sophomores only. So for that, if you are a junior or a rising senior, unfortunately, you will be declined. And so that tells me that you should apply anytime. There's no earlier age or later, earlier stage or later stage in your, academic year. You should apply, but the only thing that you should check is versus the job description, because sometimes it will say class of 2022 or class of 2021. And sometimes it will say that we need at least interns that will graduate, that would have a semester after their internship before they graduate. So that means if you are interning this summer, you would have to graduate by December 2021 or beyond. But if you are going to be graduating in August, then you cannot be part of this class.
Okay, thank you so much, Anna. I have another question here. How can one fully engage on LinkedIn?
Yeah, that's a good one. So I do have a couple interns within Uber and then other, companies. Someone like Akosia Bodiajiman, someone like Stella Odiwo. They are so active on LinkedIn in regards to things that they've done. And when we talk about engagement, it's not only about our successes. Sometimes it can be things that we've done that we failed at it as well. But how we will word it as in the lessons that we learned out of it, or let's say, well, I've applied to 50 jobs, I've been declined, but at this very moment, I'm still very grateful because I did get the chance to even, interview, and these are the things that I have learned from, my past mistakes. Or you can share with LinkedIn, that, this is how I keep track of the roles that I apply to. I have a spreadsheet, I put the dates, I put the time that I got, I heard from the recruiter. These are the things that you share. And then once you're doing it, you can tag the companies. You can tag the companies because once you tag them, we all see it, right? We all see it. And then we are able to look at your profile, right? Without you saying that, hey, look at my profile, I'm looking for a job, right? And then there are some other interns that would also, share that I'm super excited to be interning at Uber, like maybe in summer 2022. As you congratulate them, you can tag Uber and say, of course, I'm going to see you there in 2022 as well. And guess what? Maybe you've not applied yet. All right. Yeah. And then making sure that you're staying away from, some things that do not require students or interns to. And I believe those things. Some things, yeah. Some things, yeah. That way it doesn't kind of give you a different image altogether. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And I have another question here. How can I turn an internship into a full-time job?
Yes, that's a good one. That's something that I think all of us should have at the back of our minds. One of the questions that you should ask, especially during your phone screening, which I believe most recruiters will tell you, is that The internship, one of the visions behind the internship program is to build that long relationship with our interns. So we just don't want you to come in for 12 weeks and that's it, because we invest in you, the time and everything. So basically, once you're coming in, we also want you to have that mindset as well. So whilst you are interning at Uber, you would have a mentor and then you would have a manager. Your mentor is kind of like your onboarding buddy, that kind of person that you can ask questions that maybe you cannot ask during a team meeting, right? So that mentor is like that person that you can ask those kind of like personal questions and those questions that you feel like you can ask in front of so many people. So that is where you build that kind of relationship, that professional relationship with your mentor. Your mentor will be that person that can guide you. Let's say you are into tech sales, but you want to get into a different sales altogether, right? Your mentor will be your lead when it comes to like doing those kind of like quick introductions to other team members. He or she will be the one to share like his or her success stories and lessons and mistakes with you as well, right? Every intern is required to do ABC. But what are you going to be doing, which is outside of the ABC, which will help you stand out? And of course, we do give them feedback. We have a mid internship check-in. You would also be having one-on-ones with your manager or with your mentor as well. These are some of the things that you should be staying on top of. And aside of your mentor and then your manager at Uber, you would also have a talent advisor. Your talent advisor will be coming from the recruiting part. He or she will be asking more questions. How are things going? Did all the things that your recruiter told you about the internship, are they really happening for you? Are you comfortable? And on top of that, some interns also would have ERGs, which are the employee resource groups. So depending on where you're coming from, if you feel like you really want to connect with someone who looks like you will be paired with that person. So that person would also be able to guide you and let you know some tips and tricks and help you do the things that will help you stand out. Let your vision be plain to your mentor or your hiring manager. Let them know that, hey, I know this is my day-to-day, job or requirement, but what if I add this to it? They might ask, oh, why do you want to? And you're like, well, I want to be different, or I want to do more, or I feel like this is that part of me that can help me stand out. That really helps. And of course, when it comes to building your soft skills, there's nothing wrong with you saying that, hey, you know what, I'm not very comfortable, speaking in public, or maybe I'm leading a team. Are there any other resources that you can, introduce me to so I can learn on the side? This tells your team that this person is here to stay. This tells your team that this person is here to stay. But if it's like during your internship and it's like, it's for 12 weeks, that it's supposed to be full time, but somewhere in between, you want to travel for about a month. It's like, oh, okay. Because you were asked during the phone screen that would you be able to commit to for 40 hours a week and then for the 12 weeks? And you said yes. But maybe somewhere within you're like, oh, you want to travel. Oh, okay. So these are some of the things that you should be mindful of.
Thank you so much, Anna. I have another question here. How many pages are enough with regards to your resume? And does it matter?
It all depends on your level. I believe let's say as an intern, if you're someone who has never interned before or someone who's just interned once, right? I would say a 1-page resume should be good. I've seen 2, 3, 4 pages resumes, but I would say the most important things that I picked out of those resumes could have just be for just a 1-page. I have been in recruiting for about 6 or 7 years now, and I still do have a 1-page resume. And I would say, I don't think I'm missing a lot on what I need to share on my resume, because as I mentioned earlier, it's more of the keywords. It's more about the job description. It's not more about what I want to tell them, but it's more about what they are looking for. So that is why it really helps me to compress, my resume, so that it will make it easier for a recruiter or a hiring manager to really glance through my resume within like less than 5 minutes.
Oh, Okay, thank you so much. Another question I have here is, what are some of the keywords to keep off one's resume?
Oh my God, that's a good one. So depending on your job description, okay, the job description should be your guide, right? So let's say the preferred requirements, it's maybe someone who excels like maybe in an ambiguous environment and things like that, right? And then you have a keyword, you have a keyword that is the exact opposite of what the job description is saying. A strong keyword, or let's say you have applied for a marketing role, right? And all your keywords are about accounting. I mean, I would ask that, okay, so why is this person applying for this role? And then sometimes some would have statements. They'll have very strong, solid mission statement that currently looking for roles in finance and let's say accounting. But meanwhile, you've applied for a product management role, but you have a strong statement, that I'm not able to like overlook. It's right there, right? So I'm like, okay, so why is this person applying for this role? Because you have this strong statement that you are looking for, finance and this, so that is why I always go back to the job description, and then especially the preferred requirements or the preferred experience as well. That would help you know what to put on or what to take out.
Thank you so much, Anna. You mentioned the mission that is sometimes on one's resume. So I have a question here about if it's necessary to have a career objective on one's resume.
Yeah, it doesn't really make any difference. All that I would say is that don't just make it so rigid,
Okay.
you know. Or if you really want to make it rigid, just make sure that you are using that resume to apply for the right job, right? Because I mean, if it's a if let's say it's a product role or a design role, and the mission statement is telling me that you want to be in sales, accounting, or marketing, then the first question is, okay, so why is he or she applying for this role? Or chances are that when I search for product, design, your resume wouldn't even pull up. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And the next question that I have is, what is the best way to answer why should we choose you?
See, I'm laughing because this is more or less like you asking your professor that, hey, with this question in your upcoming exam, how should I answer it? Right? Yeah. Um, who are you, right? Who are you as a person? What are your core values? What you're looking for, how does it align with the company? How do you think that you coming on board will make that difference that maybe the team has never, experienced before, right? So that I would say is the best way. I tend not to, give a live, answer, because then it becomes generic.
Yeah.
Then you would hear about 2 or 3 more candidates saying the same thing. But I would say it's more of like a personal brand. Who are you, right? For me, even though I'm in university recruiting, I'm more of like a candidate experience person. I really want to make sure that even if my candidates don't get a job, they still would have a great experience. I really want to be confident in picking up a call and telling someone that, hey, you know what? You didn't get the job, but guess what? You did great, right? So those are the things that I'm passionate about. So if I'm interviewing for a recruiter role and then you say, hey, why should we hire you? I would definitely let the team know that, of course, with my background and with what I'm open to learning about this company, I believe that the passion that I have for candidate experience would help me, work well with all the candidates that I will be, interacting with, and which would eventually help this company, help people know who this company is. Because if a company is able to give every candidate a very great experience, regardless of landing a job or not, it speaks a lot about the company as well. So that's something that I would say, because that's something that I'm passionate about. So the question goes back to the one who asked again, who are you?
Thank you so much, Anna. I have another question here. Is it a good idea to say you're a minority when you are applying?
I mean, if it's part of the questions, there's nothing wrong with it, because there are questions that I would ask, like how do you identify? There's nothing wrong with it, because that's who you are. Because even if you do or do not say it, when you show up for the interview, we see it, right? Yeah, there's nothing wrong with it.
And I have another question here. Is it okay to research about the company prior to the interview and fuse it during the interview?
Yes, it's so very okay. It is. And I would say even before maybe you apply, growing up in Ghana, I always wanted to work at Hershey's chocolate. I don't know why, but I guess because of the chocolate. I have still never gotten the chance to work at Hershey's. It's a dream that I guess is gone. But I just, learned so much about Hershey's, so much that it became so natural, right? So, and if you really want something, or if you're dreaming about something, it's something that you should really know about, right? So some researches might be a current research, other research might be like back in the days for you. It makes it really natural when you are talking about it during the interview. But if it's a research that was just done like a day or two before, sometimes it might seem like you've rehearsed it and you are pitching it to the interviewer, and they can tell. They can tell, versus someone who is so much into the company, who probably just even knows a little bit more, sometimes even than the people on the team, because they have done their research, right? And interns are great. Some interns sometimes would ask me a question, I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to Google quickly and give them the answer. Yeah, so there's nothing wrong with that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. I have my final two questions here. For people who get anxious prior to an interview, what measures can they take before the interview?
Yeah, you see, check on YouTube. There are a lot of interview, videos, even from that same company, right? There are a lot of videos on YouTube. And then, so at Uber, we also do have videos on our university careers page that you will see, the recruiters, you will see some interns that have shared their experiences. There's nothing wrong with being nervous. I was nervous a couple of weeks ago when I was interviewing for a role within Uber. I mean, I was surprised. I was like, I work at the company. I know the people. Why am I nervous? I think it just comes with it. It comes with it. There's nothing wrong with it. But of course, when we got into the part, which was the thing that I was passionate about, I guess the nerves just went away, right? So do your research, watch some videos. And of course, if you have any other personal mentors, check in with them. You can do a rehearsal, but don't overthink it. Do not overthink it. The whole interviewing process, it's an experience. Some would definitely land you in a job, some probably would not. But it's an experience that you will take with you. You will learn from it, and then you would overcome it eventually. And if this also makes you feel a little better, sometimes the interviewers are also anxious too. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so I think I still do have two more questions. Someone wants to know how they can connect with you.
On LinkedIn or Canvas or Jumpstart. Yeah.
Okay, and I think this should be the last question. Is it acceptable to highlight problems you want to help the company fix? That is, if you think Uber Eats can be improved, should you let the company know during the interviewing process?
Yes, but it all depends on how you would word it. Okay. So, and of course, it's even in giving someone feedback, you don't just jump in and say, hey, I mean, this event was super terrible, I guess you should have, you started off by saying how you appreciate, how the team is growing. You are very you are so much into process improvement, and then you believe that, as an intern, this and that is some of the things that when you come on board, you are hoping to help either improve or help, make it stand out, right? There's nothing wrong with it, but how you would word it, because, there's a very thin line between some things when it comes to being confident or being arrogant, right? You really want to make sure that it's a concern, but it's a concern that you're also open to making sure that it's taken care of, or it's something that you would want to improve, but not like something that you're just calling out, yeah.
Thank you so much. In the absence of further questions, I just want to let our audience know that this is not the last time we are having Anna. We are going to be having more sessions with Anna as well. So in case you watch this video later on and you have more questions for Anna, please do not hesitate to reach out to me via info@aspireskillshub.com, and I'll be very happy to let Anna know all your questions that you have for her. And I don't know if you have any last words for our audience before we wrap up.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's been great. As I mentioned earlier, this is not only for our audience, it's for myself and other recruiters as well, because I believe that it's going to help solve some of the problems from the back end. And the last thing that I would add is, I guess one of the very questions that you should ask for maybe at events like this from the host is, it's Amanda or it's Aspire putting together like a resume book. You can go ahead and then share all your resumes with her, so she can put it together in a PDF and send it over to me. It's a way of you sending your resume out there, which of course it can either be up to like a resume critique, or maybe a job match in the future, or even getting a chance to have a mock interview with me. And this is not just for this event. I would say any other event that you find yourself, once you have dedicated your time, you should get something out of it as well. So sharing your resume with the host is also very important.
Thank you so much, Anna. For me personally, I don't know about the others, but for me personally, I've learned a lot from this session, and I was busily taking notes as well so that I can use it myself. So I'm very excited for the knowledge you've shared with us today. Thank you so much for your time. And thank you so much for being so gracious and sharing all these tips with us. I really am very grateful to you. And Aspire Skills Hub is also very grateful to you. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all so much. And I'm really looking forward to seeing your applications in the system pretty soon. Yeah.
So guys, thank you so much for joining us on this session. Once again, my name is Amanda Asafweje, and it was a pleasure having you join us on this session. We do hope you are able to join us on our live session the next time that we do have it, hopefully in June. So do have a blessed and an amazing day and a wonderful long weekend, even as we enjoy the holiday on Monday. Do take care and stay safe. Have a blessed day. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Hannah. Thank you.
Recording. I think it's still recording.
Yeah, let me just